the world, how big the world is, how small the world is, how different people are, how similar we all are. The world's a lot bigger than the US. The world of men is different.
What is up, everybody? I'm here with Traver. Traver, it is an honor to have you on the show today. I've been following you for almost close to 3 years now. I was in Man Uncivilized, and I've read your book, and just everything that you're doing, I absolutely love it. I think we need more of it in the world because men are becoming weak, and you really help them, like you say, kill the nice guy and, step into their power. So if you want to let everybody know a little bit about who you are, kind of what you do, and then, we can guide the conversation from there.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you sharing me with your audience. So yeah, my name is Traver Boehm. I'm the founder of a men's movement called the Uncivilized, and a specific men's group called the Uncivilized Nation, which now I think as of this morning, Michael, we have 45 in-person teams all over the world.
Oh, wow.
I'm the author of 2 books. One is called Today I Rise, which is a guidebook through heartbreak or divorce. And then the second book is Man Uncivilized, which was a culmination of like a year of me talking to men and realizing towards the end of that year, wow, I'm having the same conversation day in and day out. Let me start to write some of this down and catalog it and put it together. And it really was a guidebook for the iteration of masculinity that I thought was trying to come through. I'm in the middle right now of writing a 3rd book about my month-long dark retreat, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Love it. When it comes to your background, can you tell me a little bit about your childhood? Were there any experiences that kind of shaped your perception of masculinity or just strengths early on?
I wouldn't say any that shaped my perception of masculinity, but my childhood had an interesting right turn or left turn, however you want to look at it. When I was 10 years old, my family moved from suburban, white, rural, not really rural, but Connecticut,
Okay.
to the heart of Tokyo, Japan.
Oh, wow.
And we lived there for about 5 years. And so I went from literally walking through the woods to get to school and doing kickball in the street and, riding bikes with my neighbors, to taking a subway 90 minutes to get to an international school where I had to wear a blazer and a tie, and there were kids from 90 different countries. So it was a real indoctrination, I think, into the world, how big the world is, how small the world is, how different people are, how similar we all are. So I didn't know, my ass from my elbow as a 10-year-old. And then a year later, I'm hanging out with kids from Korea, from India, from Pakistan, from Japan, and learning different languages and spending time with them and their families. And so I think rather than it shifting me and helping me about masculinity, even though it was an all boys school I went to, what it really did was show me, oh, the world's a lot bigger than the US. And the world's a lot bigger than the very, very small system you've grown up in.
Yeah.
And so that was huge. And I think that's been really informative as I've looked at masculinity. I've looked at all the social issues of well, wait a minute, this is just one way that we do things. What if we do things a different way, or add a little bit of this, a little bit of that? So I got a huge introduction to a number of cultures very young.
I love that. That's super powerful, especially as a kid, because you really get to see how other ways of life kind of live, how masculine and how men and everything kind of are developed in all of these different countries. I just had a conversation with a good buddy of mine on the podcast, and he said that, the United States is one of the places that they don't have this, almost like an event where they are the coming of age, where if you go to another country, when a boy becomes a man, there's this almost like a sacred ceremony that goes on with it. Were you able to see some of those as you kind of grew up over there?
Yeah, the word you're looking for is an initiation.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a lot of it. Honestly, man, I was dumb to all of this and ignorant to all of it until it hit me in the face later in my life, until I was in my late 30s. But then I could look back so easily and see, oh, the troubled times in my teens, this is what I was really yearning for. The times when I was lost in my 20s, this was really what I was yearning for. The times when I was following the wrong path in my 30s, this is what I was really yearning for. And I think had I gone back at 13, 14 and gone through an initiation with older men who then became my guides, who then became my mentors, who then explained to me there's a different world out there. The world of men is different. Different rules, different responsibilities, different expectations, different potentials. That wasn't there. Like that book never crossed my desk. It wasn't until I was on an airplane flying from New York back to Santa Barbara, California, and I read the book To Be a Man by Robert Masters. And it literally just smacked me in the face. And I remember being so angry that I was in the middle of a divorce, that I was 39 years old and just learning these basic principles about who I was fundamentally. Like, where was this stuff in high school? Where was this stuff in my 20s? Where was this stuff before I got married? Before I found porn, before I found alcohol, before I found weed, before I disconnected from everything that actually was important? Why did it take so long? Right? And I think I know that's a lot of men's experience when they find my book or they find men's work, is suddenly like there's a period of grief and a period of anger of like, hey, wait a minute. And I often joke, Michael, that like I knew what the Pythagorean theorem was from 6th grade on, and I've never fucking used it once. But no one ever said, do you understand that masculinity is about protection and provision? Do you understand that the more grounded you are as a man, when you can feel your heart and feel your gut, your life will be significantly easier? Do you understand the power of a vision and a purpose? And you as a man, not a woman, but as a man, how you relate to that purpose and how you relate to that vision will actually make your mental health significantly better, or significantly worse if you lose touch with that. No one ever said this shit.
Yep.
Right? It's like being a very, very obese person, and then at 40, someone being like, hey, do you know you can control this? There's this thing called fats, carbs, and protein. And also there's a gym. And at 40 being like, well, wait a minute, I've just thought this was how I'm supposed to be, and I'm struggling and I have these health issues, and no one ever sat me down and told me, oh, there's basics that you just never been shown. Starting with the word that we just used 5 minutes ago, an initiation. We need to be initiated into manhood.
Yep.
If we don't,
100%.
we have this colloquial like, oh, it's a grown man or it's a young boy in a grown man's body. We hear this, the man child, right? Well, women don't need to be indoctrinated into womanhood, or it happens naturally with their first period. There's some kind of demarked or marked incident.
Yep.
Where we're us, it's like, I don't know. I went in the military. Cool. How was that? Oh, I got laid. Okay. How was that? I drank my first beer. Okay. Now you're a man. But not knowing that what we're really missing is showing that man all of the possibilities and potentials.
Yep.
That doesn't ever happen, right? There's a job title for a job description for us. For anybody listening to this, like imagine showing up to the most important job of your life. And on day one, they're like, cool, you'll figure it out. You're like, wait a minute, is there like an onboarding process? Like, do I meet HR? Is there like a video I can watch? Do you guys have anything for me? And they're like, no, but by the way, this is the most important thing you'll ever do before you become a parent. And you're like, awesome. Any help? Is there like an older guy who's going to be with? Nope, you're good. Figure it out. By the way, here's weed, here's alcohol, here's porn, here's exercise, here's Instagram, here's fantasy football. These things may help, but they're not going to. But go, have a great time. Talk to us in 6 months when you're depressed and suicidal.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because I know, like when I first found you, I was 2 years off a divorce. I wasn't really into a lot of the like masculinity stuff. I did do like a 30-day challenge with somebody else, just kind of really going through and learning. But like once you see all of the ways that you were just fucked up in
Mhm.
your relationship with whoever you were with, or like the relationship you had with your parents, and just all of that, because everything's kind of intertwined. It's like
Mhm.
interpersonal relationships.
Mhm.
And there was something that you said, it's not that she doesn't love you, it's that she just can't feel you.
Mhm.
And that really like stuck with me. And I sit there and I ask myself, I'm like, okay, like, am I giving her a reason to kind of feel me? Is there
Mm.
like, am I feeling my own emotions? Am I going into my own heart and
That's it.
like being able to like understand how I'm feeling? Because as men, I feel like we're taught to just not feel as we grow up. If we have emotions, then we're kind of pussies.
Mhm.
And that's how I grew up. Like if I'd cry, my
100%.
stepdad would be like, I'm gonna give you something to cry about, and like
100%.
want to hit me and stuff like that. And
Right.
like,
Which is insanity
yeah,
if you think about it, right? Think about anywhere else in your life where if you had another adult in your life who was upset, like one of your buddies came over to your house and was like, "Hey man, I'm super depressed because my girlfriend just left me." And you're like, "I'll give you something to be depressed about," and you kick him in the leg, right? Like that just seems ludicrous. But you're like, "Oh, if you were 30 years younger, this would make a lot of sense." Right? You're upset. Let me beat you for being upset. This is perfect. It's really powerful. Let's do that. And I grew up the same way,
yeah.
right?
It's just crazy how I feel like we learn it so late, when this should be something that, you know, we're taught
Mhm.
as like high school kids, because we're that's when the whole initiation period really starts becoming like a man. And then next thing you know,
Right.
we're 18 and they just kind of throw us the keys, and like you said, they don't give us any direction, no help, no anything.
Right. Yeah, it's tragic. And we're seeing, I mean, the ramifications of this are in every negative statistic. So it's not like this is just conjecture, like this is fact. Look at every single negative health statistic that doesn't involve breasts and ovaries, and we're at the top of it. Look at every addiction statistic, violence statistic, and now dropout rate or collapse, right? We have how many guys aren't in the workforce, aren't doing anything, are out of shape, aren't interested in relationship, aren't having sex. And those last two, like, I don't care if you're celibate or taking time off, but what it means is we're not connecting.
Yeah.
We're not connecting to ourselves. We're not connecting to a power that we have. We're not connecting to a service that we can give the world, a gift that we can give the world. And we're not connecting to other people, men or women. We're very, very isolated right now because what's woken up is the fact that we've gone, oh, we are allowed to be in pain. The world is screaming at us, recognize your pain, be vulnerable. These things happen to you. Like that's new in the last 10 years. But then what hasn't come in on a big level is here's how you deal with that pain. Here's
Yep.
how you navigate it. Here's how you alchemize it. That piece is kind of the culture hasn't caught up to that yet because we're still in this weird, confused place with men. Hey, we want you to be vulnerable. Hey, we want you to share your feelings. Hey, we want you to acknowledge your pain. Not quite that much. Sorry about that. That was, not right now, actually. We really need you to go fight fires in California. So if you could just turn that all off and go be toxic in the way we want you to. We're very, very confused culturally about what we do with men
Yep.
because we don't have a good model yet of the integrated man. We see power in men being abused on every level. So we go, cool, let's make men unpowerful. As opposed to how do we teach men how to navigate and be with the power that is inherent that we have? How do we teach us to say, yeah, I have all of this opportunity to do good or to do bad, same opportunity, same power, but I've opened my heart. I want to feel. I want to know that what I'm doing is purposeful. I want to help. And that's going to require me being human. We're not quite at the point where we look at men and go, hey, we need you to be fully human.
Yep.
This is a whole nother conversation, but if we do that again, like who's going to fight our wars? Who's going to kill on our behalf? Who's going to die on our behalf? I got in a lot of trouble a number of years ago for saying, like, we will have, quote, toxic masculinity until we stop asking men to be our primary killers and dyers in the culture, right? Hey,
Yep.
we need you to feel. We need you to be expressive. We need you to be honest about how you're feeling. Oh, by the way, go run into that room. And if you died, like, we need you to do that, though. So it's, again, it's like, it's confusing culturally. And we're kind of, a lot of men are stuck in the middle going like, well, I'm damned if I go left and I'm damned if I go right. So I'm just going to sit here on the floor and do nothing. But
Yeah.
that requires depression, that requires addiction, that requires shutting down and dumbing down and numbing, which then the culture says, don't do that, don't numb, share all your feelings. You see, it's like this cycle of, I get why it's hard,
Yep.
especially, Michael, for younger guys. I'm 48. I didn't hear the word toxic masculinity till I was in my 40s and was like, this sounds dumb. But I know 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds who grew up thinking I am inherently flawed and bad because I'm male. Now let me go try to navigate the world.
Yep.
And
No.
then they have this coming of consciousness in their late 20s or early 30s, like, wait a minute, that was bullshit. Those were lies. There's nothing toxic about being male. The very first ethos tenet is be unapologetically male. There's something very toxic about being toxic. Now, that's not gender specific. Unfortunately, we've packaged it gender wise so that it's easier to have a fall guy and a scapegoat, which is men.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that we don't do bad shit in the world, but we also do really great shit in the world. I feel like I'm ranting.
No. No, I love it because I completely agree. And then, so you spent time doing some competitive fighting, right?
Mhm.
And kind of like beyond that, you were like a bodyguard over in Thailand. How would you say like that kind of shaped your mindset and your approach to life?
I fought in Thailand. I was a bodyguard in LA.
Okay.
Just how did it shape? One, it really awakened the idea in me of how vulnerable most people are. Now, hang out with fighters, hang out with jiu-jitsu guys, hang out with boxers, hang out with Muay Thai people, and you're going to realize how different you are to a civilian when it comes to what you understand about violence, what you understand about self-control, what you understand about pain. Right? I was going through grad school when I was fighting, and I would come in to class most nights, and it was a female dominated program. I was studying Chinese medicine, and I'd have black eyes and my face would be cut up. I don't have hair, so like there'd be scratches all over my head, and people were literally appalled. Like, could not even conceive of how I had gotten punched in the face that morning and was still there that night. And this was my normal day to day. This would happen 5-6 days a week. Right. But what it also taught me, and this is such something that I think is so important for guys specifically to know, is I understand what I'm capable of. I understand what other people aren't capable of. And I understand how I get to walk the world in a very different body than most humans. That was the gift of professional fighting. That's still the gift. I still do jiu-jitsu. I don't worry about my physical safety 99% of the time I walk the earth. That's a rarity for most people.
Yeah.
That's a inconceivable thought for most women who are worried walking from their house to their car in the morning. Right? I know if I've put myself in bad situations, okay, things may get hairy here. I know I can get myself out. But I don't, like, I've never worried walking to my car ever. You know what I mean? So that's why we have the ethos tenet, like, be dangerous but not a danger. Because I also understood, because I got around a lot of guys who could fuck a lot of people up. And what do you know? They're the calmest, most polite, service oriented men I've ever been around, with the few exceptions. There's always an outlier,
Yeah.
but that's most people, right? And I'll add, because I really want men listening to this, Michael, those professions and those ideas gave me a path, right? I am 48 years old. I went to jiu-jitsu yesterday. I do not ever plan to get in another fight in my life at this age. I'm more than happy. I've done it before to be like, oh my God, you could totally kick my ass. I'm going to walk away. So why do I still do it? Right? Like my neck hurts this morning. My elbows hurt this morning. Why still do it? Because it's following a path.
Yeah.
Because it's in the background. I remember a guy in my 20s being like, jiu-jitsu will be here for your whole life when you go through all your ups and downs. And I remember thinking, as an arrogant, 24-year-old, I was like, well, I'm not going to have any downs, so I don't really need to worry about that. And then, a divorce, a couple failed businesses later, some people killing themselves, some people dying in my life, being like, wow, I'm not okay today. I'm going to go to jiu-jitsu and get okay. That's also a really important thing. I want men to construct their lives so that they have things that are there for them, be that brotherhood, be that athletics, be that a hobby, be that reading, something, when the inevitable wave of life comes and crashes on you, so that our suicide rate drops, so that our depression rates drops, our anxiety rates drop, right? That's real to me. So how did it shape the world? I know that was a big question. It let me see who's a danger, and it let me see who's vulnerable, and it gave me something to lean back against when shit hit the fan.
Yeah, no, I love that, because I think one of the biggest things that are missing is men just having that outlet of
100%.
something that is like almost like mind, body, spirit, where if they're
Mhm.
having a bad day, they can just go beat the shit out of a mat instead of bringing that anger home and bringing it into the relationship
For
and
sure.
stuff like that. Because I know, like my stepdad, he didn't really have that, and he would bring all of his anger home, and he'd take it out on me, my mom, my little brother,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was just hell. And
Right.
having that outlet, being able to just go beat the shit out of something, like my mom's now husband was a professional boxer for a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
like you said, he's just calm.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really worry about anything. He knows that if
Mm-hmm.
something happens, he'll be able to kind of or he'll know he can protect the family, and just do what he needs to do in order to kind of take down the threat in a way that most people can't.
Yeah. I think it's really important. I was super small growing up, Michael. I graduated high school at 135 pounds,
Yeah.
which is not awesome. And it probably took me till my junior year of college to break 160, right? I'm 185 as of this morning. So I'm now like a bigger dude at 5'10, right? But I remember thousands and thousands of times before turning 24 or 25 and actually understanding my body, how vulnerable I felt in a group full of guys, walking through the mall, getting gas. I'm like, who's going to mess with me? Who's going to pick on me? Who's going to fuck with me? Now, I'm not saying that training automatically eliminates all of that, but man, does it not give you a real leg up, and it just calms that part of you, or calmed that part of me that let me not feel safe. And then guess what got to come out? My personality,
Yeah.
who I was in the world, the things I wanted to do, my love for people, right? My desire to be of service. It all came out because I wasn't living in survival mode, even though there wasn't an active threat, but just a dude being small. Just that's how I felt. And I know plenty of big guys who, even though they're big, are like terrified of violence or terrified of conflict, because the beauty of boxing, kickboxing, MMA, jiu-jitsu is you're in that environment every day, but it's consensual. So it's like we get to do the thing that we're afraid of with someone who's also there with us, who's helping us, but is also going to punch us in the face. And so talk about life training, right?
Yeah.
Like what are the things that scare people? Public speaking, sharks, and probably getting their asses kicked. So go to Toastmasters. I don't know what to tell you about sharks. Uh, just stay out of the ocean
Yeah.
and learn to throw a punch, right? Learn to know that like I can take care of this, right? We have 5 pillars at Uncivilized, and the last one is competency. I'm competent in violence. Just like I have a buddy who's really competent in the stock market. I'm not. But he knows like I have money worries that he will never have. But I can walk into a bar and know like I'm great if anybody fucks with me, and he's not. So we have to ask ourselves like what do we want to be competent in, and what is useful and not useful. I think as men, that's a really good, if you don't have a path, if you're like, man, I don't know what to do with myself, there's a number of ways to make your life better, to make your life feel better every day, that like bleed across a couple different domains, that I think is super important for men to pick up.
Yeah, especially like as a man or as a man, just having like that vision and mission that you're working towards. I feel like a lot of people get stagnant and stuck because they don't actually give themselves the time to figure out what they actually fucking want in life.
For
And that
sure.
just continues to hold them back. And they just continue to go on that cycle of depression and anxiety and not being fulfilled. And we only get one life. It's
Right, man.
and it's short. Like I'm gonna be 32 this year, and like
It goes fast.
it's going fucking by real quick.
Yeah, and it gets faster. I have mentors in their 70s who say like I remember being your age to me and how fast it goes. And
Yeah,
me being like, "No, it'll be forever before I'm 70." And now looking back and be like, "Oh, I remember when I was 24.
yeah,
That was 24 years ago. In 24 years, I'll be 72. Holy shit." It's the days are long, but the years are fast, right? So I'm with you. It's so helpful for guys to have something that we're working towards. There's something that we rub up against. If you can hear the languaging that we like tussle with, that forges us and changes us. And it doesn't have to be a martial art. I don't care if it's poetry. I don't care if it's dance. I don't care if it's surfing or skiing or something that you apply yourself to that will give you multiple results. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Like I know guys whose life philosophy is radically different after they've learned to play music. How they cook is different because of how they play music. So it doesn't matter what the subject matter is, but like, does it give you more than one result? I don't know anybody who's radically changed their body through weightlifting whose mind is also not different, whose relationship is not also different, whose food isn't different, whose sleep isn't different, whose mobility isn't different, right?
yep,
And then how many guys do you and I know who are like, nah, I don't know what to do with myself. So what do? I just date a lot and get high, or I play video games. I'm not picking on video games, but like, what are you building? That's the very first chapter of Man Uncivilized. What are you building? You only get a certain amount of time,
exactly.
and you want to be satisfied. One of my favorite things, man. I will ask guys in workshops, what are your wants, needs, and longings as a man? And the question usually gobsmacks most people. They just stare at me. Like I just walked in their kitchen floor and took a shit, right? It's like, what did you ask me? I'm like, what do you want? What do you need? What do you long for? And have them journal for half an hour and think on it and go sit under a tree and let it fuck them up, the question, and then bring them back together. And after they share, like, men will be crying. I'll be fucking crying. Watch, because I'm like, I know your life will be different now. You've actually acknowledged what you want to do here. Tomorrow morning, you're not going to get up, jerk off twice, get stoned, play video games, get on Reddit, and then go to bed. You're going to get to the gym. You're going to go hire somebody. You're going to work at something. You're going to read a book. You're going to dive into YouTube. Like, you're going to actually engage with this thing called life.
Yeah,
That's brilliant. I don't know if you can see this, Mike. Can you see this over my shoulder? See that mannequin?
yep,
I had that shipped to my house yesterday. This is kind of an odd deal. But I've started redoing shibari, rope tying.
Okay.
Like, and it was an interest of mine years ago, and I picked it back up. And literally, I just bought a mannequin. I know that may seem weird because I don't have another human around me all the time to tie up. But people are like, why do you want to tie people up? Like, is this part of your work? Is this part of Uncivilized? Like, no, I'm really curious about creating this art with rope and creating the
Yeah.
relationship with a partner who I tie up. Like, is this going to make you more money? Are you going to write about this? No, I'm as a dude, I get to have shit that's just for me. I'm really curious about this. I want to do it. And I know when men dive down subjects like that, their lives get better.
100%. Because I like just shibari alone, like the trust and intimacy that kind of comes with it is so much deeper than what people realize, because like whoever you're tying up really has to have that trust in you, because if you do one knot kind of wrong, then you can actually cause pain and everything on them.
Mhm.
So like it's just beautiful how much depth that really does create in a relationship.
Yeah. And if we can hit on that word, I will tell you, after almost a decade of working very intimately with men, the thing we crave most is depth. We crave it, man. Guys will look me right in the eye and be like, I don't care about depth. I'm like, yes, you do. You want depth in your relationship. You want depth at work. You want depth in your sex life. You want depth in your friendship. You want to feel below the surface of social media, shitty food, and a job that a trained monkey could do, or now AI could do in 3 weeks from now, that you actually fucking matter.
Yeah.
And that your experience here while you're here has some degree of depth to it. I completely agree with you. I've tied women up and it has been a radically emotional experience. Nothing sexual, period. Clothes on, no arousal, but holy shit, was there. I'm pouring sweat, and not because it's hard, but just because there's so much energy going back and forth. And I've gone on, I've been in year-long relationships that didn't have anything close to the depth of one night of tying. And those relationships bored the shit out of me and were miserable, and I was miserable, but I was like, oh, but she's hot, which I think that's the trap. Like, we just,
Yeah.
everybody listening to this, just admit that you actually do crave depth.
And a lot of people that date for kind of going to like the comment you made, like, oh, she's hot. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people that date for just the looks of somebody, like they never get that depth that they're searching for, because
Mm-mm.
like it's sad to say, but a lot of women that do kind of focus solely on their looks and a lot of that, they can't bring the depth that
Mm-hmm.
a woman that is like searching for like meaning and depth and everything in her own life.
For sure. And she can't meet that man in depth.
Yep.
So even if that man can go to depth, she can't. Or she can go to that depth, but the man can't go there and meet her. And so the
Exactly.
best way for you guys listening to this that I've helped find it's helpful is, like, imagine there's the meal you want to eat so badly. Like, if you have your death row meal, whatever it is, the thing you'd eat the night before you were executed. And that's like 3 doors down in your house in a room that's shut. And you go into the bathroom with your partner and you're like, hey, is it in here? No. Most people never get out of that first room. Like, well, shit, here's some crackers and some cheese that we left last week. Let's eat that. Okay, let's just stay here, right? But the thing that you're craving that you want will require you to go a little bit further down the hall. And the further you go down, it requires more vulnerability. It requires you opening yourself up to being hurt, you trusting that person, them trusting you. But the juice at the end, man, like, that's worth the squeeze. It's worth the journey. And that doesn't have to be relationally. We've talked about just being on a path. There's
Yeah.
depth.
So then
Really
after
important
your
topic.
oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead.
After your divorce and really experiencing personal loss, you took a deep dive into the wilderness,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively. Can you kind of tell us, like, about the pivotal moments and how it really kind of shifted your perspective in life?
In the woods, like in
Yeah.
at Boss. I did a month-long survival program with Boulder Outdoor Survival School. Is that what you're asking about?
Hmm.
Yeah, amazing program. Basically, we spend 30 days in the Utah wilderness with a knife, a water bottle, a blanket, a compass, and a rain poncho, and that's it. And some of
That's
the
wild.
food you gather along the way, some of it is actually brought in, but it's like, very, very minimal. We didn't get any food for the first nothing, zero, I think, for the first 5 or 6 days. So like no eating for a week. Um, and it was pivotal, Michael, because what we spoke about in the beginning is it let me know what was real. I've now, this past week, 10 guys in my company went and spent a week in Montana on horseback. Like, it's one of the programs that we run called the Wild Outside, and they spent a week in the wilderness on horseback, where the closest people or closest access road or closest way out was over 10 miles away. I just got
Wow.
chills. I
Yeah.
have talked to every single one of those guys now, and I'll be honest with you, they're a bit fucked up because they're back and they're saying it's so loud in society. It's so fast in society. It's so intense. There's so much energy coming at me. There's so many people. There's so much technology that I feel disturbed living a normal life now. And they weren't out there for 6 months. They weren't
Yeah.
out there for 5 years. They went out there for a week. So what did it teach me? Man, it taught me a couple things. Number one, if we go back to that conversation about like I can walk into a room and I know I'm going to take care of myself. Bro, when the pandemic hit and I was like, is this it? Is this like, are we, is this every man for himself? Like the first 2 weeks, no one knew what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm good. I'll be okay. I know I can walk, I can live. I'll outlast a lot of people because I know I can just walk in the woods. I can find food. I can create shelter. I can take care of myself. But two, it really let me know how unimportant most of the shit that we think is important actually is. I didn't have TV. I didn't have electricity. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a lot of things out there, but was so content and so satisfied and so at home that it really did disturb when I came back. The very first night of that course, here's what they do. We got driven way out in the woods, come out of a van. The van drives away. They walk us into the woods for about a half an hour, and there's this big opening. And they go, we're going to leave you here just for an hour. What we want you to do is lay on your back and look at the stars and realize that up until about 100 years ago, this was normal. And what you just came from is abnormal. And so we're not teaching you anything or introducing you to anything. We're reintroducing you. We're having you relearn what you knew that's in your bones, that's in your DNA. And that was really, really insightful, right? I come out of a year of experiences like that and look at the world and go, I don't want to be civilized. It wasn't just a play on words. It was an actual thing of like, I don't want to live in this world that we all live in, at least not emotionally or energetically, right? Do I live in a house? Yes. Am I on the internet? Yes. Do I have a cell phone? Yes. Do I drive a car? Yes. But to be in this world, but not of it, to not be caught by the politics, by the media, by the shitty food, by the fake relationships, by what the Kardashians are doing this weekend, by porn, by drugs, by alcohol, by all of the bullshit. That was my goal with starting Uncivilized. And it really stemmed from a lot of my time in the woods.
Love that. Because that's super powerful. People don't realize, I look at it as like a dopamine detox. Like we're so overstimulated with dopamine from all the email notifications, social media, work, like every single thing going on. And it really does like control our lives. So being able to have that experience of, even if it's just a week or it's a month,
Mhm.
being able to really just unplug from everything and get
Yeah.
back into our roots of what civilization was like you said, 100 years ago, like that
Yeah.
is extremely powerful.
Yeah, man. Super helpful. Like we're so confused as to why we have a mental health epidemic, a physical health epidemic, an obesity epidemic. Like we are disconnected from everything that's real. We just are. We don't have real relationships. We in America, we don't eat real food. I hope this isn't a leap of faith for people to look at our politicians and go, that's not really what they're talking about. They're not who they profess to be. Or the systems in place are like, oh, that's here to protect you. It really feels like it's corrupt, right? How come there's food that's illegal in Europe, but it's legal here? How come when I go to Europe, I don't have gas and bloating and wheezing when I eat dairy or eat wheat, but I do here? How
Yeah.
come we're the only country that can have pharmaceutical ads during like football games? Right? Why is intuitively, I think we have to know this is not how life is supposed to be. We're not supposed to give our entire life energy and our time here sitting on a freeway to go work in a cubicle staring at a screen creating nothing of value. Truly, right? I
Yep.
think intuitively we know this. We just don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, my father-in-law, we were sitting there. We'll watch Hulu every once in a while when I'm over there, and it was 90% of the advertisements that were on there were pharmaceutical ads, and we were like,
Right?
"What the fuck? Like, what is going on?"
It's
Like,
crazy.
yeah, it is super crazy.
It's crazy. And then go walk through a supermarket and be like, how much of this is actually food? If you want to do
That,
another deep dive, how much of it is marketed to kids?
yep,
In a country where it's like, but what about the children? What about the children? Well, how come Fruit Loops are positioned 2 feet high on a supermarket shelf? Why are they even sellable?
yeah, with all the
Right?
red 40, the yellow 5, all of
It's
that in there.
crazy.
Somebody posted a picture on social media, I think it was like a week ago, and it showed the ingredients in I can't remember what it was, but it showed the ingredients from 20 years ago versus the ingredients today. And 20 years ago, there was maybe 10, 15 ingredients in it. Today,
Mm-hmm.
there was like 40 to 50,
It's
which is
crazy.
just, it's not healthy. It's killing us as a society.
Mm-mm.
And it's just like, it's crazy that the FDA just kind of lets all of this just continue to happen and continue to just get worse and worse.
Yeah. And we buy into it.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy that shit. You can look at it. You can walk down a supermarket aisle and be like, that's not food. That's not food. That's not food. I'm going to go get a carrot and some hummus and a fucking steak. That's food,
Yeah.
right? We also play a role in it. We're complicit in it as well, right? And I'm not separating myself as like, have I ever eaten shitty food? I have. But as a culture, why do we allow it? That's the curiosity, right? I used to give, like when I first was out of grad school and had opened a gym, I was also doing acupuncture at a chiropractor's office. And every third Thursday or something, he would invite all of his patients in and I would give a talk. He was like, would you mind, you like public speaking, would you do this? And I remember once holding up a cereal box and reading the ingredients and then talking about how many people in America die every month from heart disease and diabetes, to kind of arguably, controllable diseases
Yeah.
in mass, right? In the way we're seeing them, in the numbers we're seeing. And I remember saying something to the effect of like, how much emotional uproar and change and disturbance happened after 9/11? It was, oh my God, we went to war with Iraq. The whole country came together. Things were shut down. Policy was changed. Like we had all of this change. It's like we have a 9/11 every 2 days with diabetes and heart disease, and people are like, meh, whatever. It's all right. Doctors know, there's a pill for that. Like, why aren't we in an uproar? That's a real question. Why isn't the civilized world in an uproar over these big issues that affect us daily, you know? Different question.
Yeah, no, it can go deep. It's definitely a
Mm,
rabbit hole that
sure, sure.
we'd be able to go down. I know you've emphasized embracing both the primal and the divine aspects of masculinity.
Sure.
Like, how did that idea come to you, and how do you integrate it into your teachings?
The primal part, Michael, came from the woods, from that. So here's the best way to frame it. I was seeking masculinity. I'd gotten divorced. I'd started asking the question of like, who am I as a man, right? Like very, very, very deep question. And the first thing I did before the woods was I spent about 3 months in a very spiritual town in Guatemala called Lake Atitlan. I lived in an ashram where that is people just dedicated to their relationship to the divine in whatever form they may take it, right? Not a Christian church, but same idea. People who are like, I am devoted to my connection to God. That is why I'm alive. That's all I'm doing. That's my jam, right? That's what I do. And I got around a lot of the men there. And I'm a seeker. I have questions. I'm curious. I'm really, really curious. I love people. I love people's stories. I want to talk to people. And felt with these guys like, holy shit, their hearts are wide open. Like, I have never been around men like this. I've been around fighters, military. I'm from the East Coast. Like, this is not the experience of men that I've been around. But like, I couldn't quite trust them. There was something missing about them. I was like, you're soft and you're lovely and you're open hearted. But like, if we go downtown and there's an issue, I don't think you'll have my back. And I don't think you'll have your back. And honestly, you feel a little bit fucking lost. Like your every day is like, well, I'm not sure what I'm called to do today, right? Uh, like anything hard suddenly got bypassed. And so that was like the divine idea. I was like, there's something missing here. And then I did that month in the woods with Boulder Outdoor Survival School. And I remember the instructors there were just fucking wild men. Like guys who could literally walk into the woods and you'd never see them again. And they didn't give a shit. Like they cared. They just literally wanted to live in the woods. And I remember thinking with them, like, wow, you are so impressive. Like, you know all about nature, you know about hunting, you know about the land, you know about what fruit we can eat and what leaves heal us. Like, you are primal as hell. But like, how would you do in a week in New York City? And do you have relationships? Like, I don't see, like, do you want to be a father? How are you with women? It seems like you've kind of completely left society. Do you have a mission? Do you have a purpose? Are you connected to something bigger than yourself? And so I felt into both sides and I was like, I'm not really sure what direction to go here.
It's like the
And
yin and yang.
society, when I can't, go ahead.
No, it's like the yin and yang. You have kind of both
100%.
sides to every coin.
100%. And so when I was putting together the idea of Uncivilized, it was like, you know what? I'm not going to pick left or right. I'm not going to go primal or divine, which it seemed like was my only option, right? I remember coming back into the US and coming back into this question of masculinity. And it was like, if you're a man, you either need to be a pseudo Navy SEAL, Jocko Willink, tough guy, David Goggins, rah, 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 or we need you to be like Johnny's spiritual boy who doesn't really want to do anything but loves everybody and is a vegan feminist poet and yada yada. And I was like, I don't want to be either of these two guys. I want to take from both. And I want to have them meet in the middle. And if they could meet in the middle and meld into one man, that's how I want to be. Because I have primal aspects of myself. I fought professionally. I like to fuck shit up. I like to lift weights. I like to do hard things. I like to fuck my woman. I want to build a really big company. And I spend my mornings in meditation. I write. I journal. Right? I'm an acupuncturist. I'm connected to energy. I don't want to give up either side of myself. And what it felt like I had been asked to do for the first 40 years of my life was pick a side. You're a dude. Which one are you going to be here? Right? I remember in acupuncture school, in my last year, they pulled me aside and were like, hey, you can't keep showing up to see patients with black eyes. You gotta pick one here. Pick one or the other, right? And that was kind of like society telling me, you don't get to be both. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of men because we're so logical and literal. We're like, wait, I want to be X or do I want to be Y? And like you said, if I'm soft and sensitive, then I get picked on for being a pussy. If I'm tough and grumble, I get told I'm not vulnerable and I can't be connected to. So
Yep.
why not pick the one in the middle? And truly, Michael, when I put this out into the world, my life drastically changed because so many men came out of the woodwork saying, oh, thank God, I've been waiting for this. I'm like you. I don't want to pick left or right. I want to be in the middle. I want to have aspects of both. I want to be a soft, caring, loving father. And I want to run an 8-figure company and run marathons on the weekend, right? Like I want both. And I feel like my job here with men has been to bring about a paradigm that allows for full expression of who you are as a man, rather than saying like, that thing, that's not really manly. Let's get rid of that. Ooh, that thing, that's super manly. Let's only allow you to be that.
Love that. No, that's super. It's deep when you really start to think about it. So the uncivilized ethos, like it's a core part of literally everything that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Which part of the ethos do you see that men struggle with the most in today's culture, and how do you kind of help them overcome these challenges?
Two of them, right? Well, actually, I mean, there's a number of them, but I mean, be dangerous but not a danger is the one I get the most questions about. But I think when men sit, and if they've ever been around other dangerous men, as I said, they get it.
Yeah.
They get that like the quiet guy is the guy you're worried about. And dangerous also meaning you're free thinking. I know who I am. I hope marketing doesn't really work on me because I know who I am and I know what I want. And it doesn't really, I'm not interested in the shit that most people are interested in. To the culture, that makes me a danger because I can't be sold to and I can't be manipulated. That's in there too. But really, it's the know that your deepest gifts grow in the garden of your wounds. That ethos tenet, man, when that lands in men, when you go, hey, that shit that you lived through, as a boy, as a teenager, in the military, in your 20s, in your 30s, that divorce, the loss of your child, all the loss of your parents, whatever it is, that shit that you've been told to just man up and ignore, that there are fucking gems in there, that there's
100%.
power in there that's been waiting for you to unlock, like a video game. Like you stepped over the little token that if you had picked up, it would have completely changed your avatar. That's a big one, right? How many guys are walking around just devastatingly wounded because of their childhood or because of something that happened to them? And then they come into my world and we say, actually, we're not going to ask you to ignore that. We want you to dive into that. What was that like? How did that shape you? What did you learn? If you healed that, how would your life be different? What gift would that give you if you could forgive that person or whatever it is that you lived through?
Yeah.
Man, that's like a monumental spiritual shift in that man's life. That's a biggie. And then, have equal and open access to your head, heart, and balls. Where most guys have access to their heads, we fucking think all day. But can you feel your heart? Do you love? Are you open to be loved? Are you open to be connected with? Do you speak and freely express emotion? Can you do that? Right? I ask how many guys, like, how do you feel? And like, I don't know, man. No one's ever asked me that before. I got punched in the face for feeling as a kid. I got picked on. I got thrown on the ground. I got abused for feeling. No one's ever asked me since. And then their balls, they think like, oh, I'm just supposed to go fuck a lot of women. No, that's your drive in the world. That's you actually owning the fact that you are powerful beyond measure. Look at the shit men have built.
Yeah.
Look at the society we've built. Look at the cult. Look at the buildings. We look at all the stuff that we've built. Look at the immense power that one person has when he claims it. or she claims it, but since we're speaking to men, when he claims it, now imagine that power tempered with his heart. So he's not just another tyrant. Whew, that man's unstoppable, right? Those are big. I mean, I have guys that relate to all of them, even I'll say the last one, fight hurt. How many guys listen to this are like, man, I get messages daily, brother, of guys going through divorces, guys who can't see their kids, guys who are living through shit. And like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, fucking fight hurt. The fact that you're hurt doesn't mean that you don't get to get up and punch back, that you don't get to do something with this. Right? I'm in the middle of this right now. My father died 2 months ago. I had a relationship of 4 years end the week after. That's not fun. Those are
Yeah.
big things, right? At the same time, big things. And so there are many mornings I get up and I'm like, you know what we got to do today? We got to fucking fight. I don't feel like it. I want to go back to bed and wallow in my own misery. And so this isn't fair that these things happened. Or I go, cool, I got a book to edit. Let's start editing. I got men to reach out to. Let's do a post on Instagram. Let's do an interview. I'm not feeling good. I don't give a fuck it. Fight hurt.
Yeah.
Not to say that there aren't days when you go, you know what? It's Sunday. Some shit's happened. I'm watching football. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But the
Whenever
idea, like, they're really like, I feel, see Michael now, especially young guys, because I get it. Like, the future is so unknown that they've just collapsed, that they've given up, or they've hit their first roadblock. Like, oh man, I got fired from my company. Well, go join another one or start one.
Yeah.
Like, don't give up. Do not fucking quit. Yeah. So I cut you off.
No, it's all good. There's so many like different possibilities and opportunities out there for people, especially when something has happened that's big. I know if something big happens, I'll give myself 24 hours to kind of sit with it, let myself go through all the
Yeah.
shit that I'm going through. And then after those 24 hours are up, then it's back to work. And it's just, like you said, fighting hurt and making sure that I'm doing what I need to do to keep myself, my family, all of that on the right track of what we're trying to create and everything there.
Yeah. And sometimes fighting hurt is going to therapy.
Yeah.
Sometimes fighting hurt is joining a men's group and saying, like, hey guys, I'm not okay. Sometimes fighting hurt is reaching out to a buddy and being like, bro, I am not good. Can you take me to lunch? And not beating yourself up, because that's what is necessary to get to the goal that you want to get to. We all think that it's just forward progress. Some days the best way to fight hurt is actually to take a step back, to reassess, to acknowledge that, like, I can't do this on my own right now. That's still fighting, guys. Still fighting.
Then how would you define success in your work today? And how's that definition kind of evolved over time?
Like, success of my work, or just
Yeah.
success
Of
period?
like your mission, your company, all of that.
It's how many, and I don't, this isn't the only metric, but I track like how many messages I get from guys. Like, hey, this really helped me. Hey, this saved my marriage. Hey, this saved my life. Hey, by the way, I'm 2 years sober because of a post you did 2 years ago that you may not even remember. That's how we've done it so far. But we're actually, it's not public yet, but I can tell you, we've launched a nonprofit. And that's where we really think we're going to see the most beneficial help to men.
Yeah.
Because running a for-profit company means I need to charge a certain amount to work with me, to work with one of my coaches, to work with someone on the team, because we got a whole company to support. But with a nonprofit, I can go into underserved areas or guys who don't have the financial means and say, like, here is the help that you need. And so to me, success is going to be continually spreading our reach. How do we get to guys in prisons? How do we get to guys who are coming out of prisons? How do we get to guys who are illiterate? How do we get to the military and first responders who are, suicidal or just on rock bottom? How do we reach that demographic?
Hell
So the
yeah.
metric is still like, how do we just keep reaching people, man?
Hell yeah. What do you hope to achieve with Man Uncivilized and the entire movement in the next few years? And, where do you kind of see that movement heading?
I want a team in every major city in the world. I want a men's team in every major city in the world. so that any dude who's struggling and is going, man, I heard about this thing of guys helping other guys. Let me check and see where I am. Oh, I'm in Miami. Huh, there's nothing here. Fuck it. Let me go back to the bar. I want him to go, oh, Uncivilized Miami. What's this about? Let me check that. Oh, Uncivilized Tokyo. Let me check that. Oh, Uncivilized Jakarta, Uncivilized London, Uncivilized Paris. Right? I
Where,
want that because I know how valuable it was when I was in a bad place to
yes.
find men's work. And I know I just mentioned hard stuff happening. I've gotten messages every single day since my dad passed, since my relationship ended, from men being like, "Hey man, just checking in. How you doing? Hey man, need anything today? Let me know." And I know that there are guys who never get that, Michael. Not a single one. And I know I'm at the head of an organization, so I'm in a little bit of a different position. But I know guys in my business or in the movement, in the nation. I was on a call, man, this was like 3 months ago. And it was a co-ed call. And we had a guy, it was about men, but we had a guy from the UK, right? Hey, I'm kind of at a rock bottom place. I'm going through this, I'm going through that, and I don't have anybody to talk to about it. And I wrote in the chat, like you do now. And the
Beautiful.
next, I just got chills again. Look at my arm. Underneath that comment was guys on the call giving their phone numbers. It was like phone number, phone number, phone number, phone number, phone number, phone number, phone number. Reach out to me, reach out to me, reach out to me. What's your number? How do we get in touch with you? That's what I'm after. No one knew him. They didn't know his name. No one was going to pitch him, a $7,000 coaching package. It was just like, hey, brother, I heard you're hurting. I've been where you are. Let me reach out to you. That's what I'm after.
I love that. No,
Globally.
we definitely need that 100%. What
Mm-hmm.
advice would you give to like a man struggling with modern societal pressures on masculinity right now?
Read my book. Read Man
No, it's
Uncivilized, right?
yeah,
And that's
it's
not a pitch, right? Like I make like $1 a book. So it's not like I have to sell 100,000 of them to recoup what it cost me to make it. But like read the book, just start a process, start following the path of men, right? Read Connor's book, read Men's Work, read The Way of Men by Jack Donovan. Start listening to podcasts, start watching videos, start following you. Find men who are doing better than you are and listen to what they listen to, watch what they watch, read what they read. And the very first thing I told all the guys who reached out to me who were like, I'm flat broke, I'm living in my car, I can't afford anything, what do I do? Like, go do 50 push-ups. Sounds so stupid. But like, remember that you have a body. Remember that you can push that body up and down off the floor, and that will make you feel better. And if that makes you feel better, there are paths for you to feel better. Like, I don't know anybody who's gotten in shape who feels like shit about themselves afterwards. And that's free.
hell yeah. And then I know we're kind of getting a little over time.
Sure.
Last question. What legacy do you hope to leave behind with the work that you're doing now?
I just want people to think differently, Michael, and it's already happened. Right? My first book, I still get letters about every week from people saying this helped me at the hardest time of my life. I was going through a divorce. Someone mentioned your book. Thank you so much. It really, really helped me. Uncivilized, that shifted the way men exist in the world. Even though it's small, it hasn't blown up the way I expect it to and know it will. And then my next book is Mass Appeal, right? It's not about men. It's not about divorce, which are niche. It's about how do you navigate the dark and hard parts of your life. And so I know people think differently because of my work. And I'm not arrogant in saying that. I know it. I have the data, right? I have thousands of emails and thousands of letters. So I just want to keep doing that. Like, I want to keep helping people see through the bullshit, look inward and find their hearts, find their souls, start to live more fully expressed, more authentic lives. And that's it. Like, there's nothing. I know I'm going to die. I know in 20 years, and then we're not even talking about AI, how that may shift things. Like, I feel like I've left the legacy.
Love
I
that.
just want it to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of your case studies, I guess you could say, as well, just because I know reading the book, being part of the men's group for a while, like it really changed the way that I think about how I show up in my relationship. It allowed me to really kind of sit down and look at how I showed up in my past relationships, because
Mm,
I was with my ex for 9 years. We were married for 4. It was a very
mm,
toxic relationship, but
yeah.
it was toxic because of the way both of us kind of showed up, and being able to just claim my own shit that I like
Mm,
brought into that relationship was extremely powerful, and learning from it and being able to like completely change the way that I view how I show up in this next relationship. And I mean, I'm remarried. We've been together for a little over 3 years now. We have a almost 2 year old daughter, and
good for you,
like
man.
not only having to show up for my wife, but now having to show up for my daughter and be able to be a healthy male
Mm,
role model and really show her what a real relationship is supposed to look like. Because I don't think a lot of people have that. They don't know what a
yeah.
real like healthy relationship is supposed to look like. So being able to have
Mm-mm.
people like you out there really kind of just healing men all over the world and being able to
Mm,
give daughters and sons and everything the ability to kind of see what a healthy relationship looks like is extremely powerful. So I thank you so much for all the work that you do, and
my
I
pleasure.
look forward to continuing to watch your journey and just yeah.
Thanks you. Thanks
Of
for having
course.
me on.
Of course. If you want to let everybody know where they can find you, I will put the links and everything in the show notes
Sure.
below, whether you're watching on YouTube or Spotify or Apple. The links and everything will be there. And the link to the book will be there as well.
Thank you. Yeah, guys, go to manuncivilized.com, or I have a podcast, the Uncivilized Podcast. You can get my books on Amazon, or I'm at Traver Boehm, TraverBoehm on Instagram. If you found something in this interview that you liked or enjoyed or had a question about, DM me there. I spend a lot of time chatting with people there, but I'm not hard to find. Just look up Uncivilized. If you look up Uncivilized and find someone else, let me know too. We gotta get rid of that.
Love
Cheers,
it.
brother.
Thank
Thanks for
you
having me
again.
on.
Of
All right.
course.
Take care.